Noel?
That's me.
How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Excellent.
How are you guys doing?
Excellent.
We're doing good. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, this is my partner, Dave. Noel, I have to tell you to start that I found out about your name when I was a kid in Cream Magazine, and back then I said, that's the guy I want to interview.
At that point, I was only 11, though.
That's right. It's incredible. Well, we're
age me.
Absolutely.
Make me 112.
Well, I would imagine hanging around with those four guys, it'll age you, right?
Actually, it got me younger.
Really?
Rock and roll has always made me feel young.
Wow, that's cool. Just to make you feel at home, you're talking to two New Yorkers here. We're both from the Queens area. So, and I know you're from, what, Brooklyn?
No, I'm from Manhattan.
Oh, Manhattan.
My wife is from Queens.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we're all in the same area, which is cool. So it is an absolute pleasure to talk to you. We are so excited to have you on, and congratulations on the book. We've been enjoying it for the past week or so. And we've been waiting for this book for a really long time, and we are beyond excited that you wrote it. We thought you did a fantastic job. You got a great tone in the book, which is really, really nice, very reader-friendly. And
yes,
you really,
definitely.
Right? And you give a nice, real clear picture of the behind-the-scenes of everything, which was so exciting.
Well, that's pretty much, you nailed it as far as what I wanted to do.
Right.
I see so many. When I did 12 Days on the Road, the Sex Pistols in America, it was an eye-opener to me because I'd never written a book before.
Sure.
All of a sudden, all these other books popped up.
Right.
The unfortunate part was I always judge a rock book by has the writer, the author, ever seen the shows?
Right.
Like, did you ever see the 78 to 85 shows?
Right,
Were you
right.
there?
Right.
And then did you ever meet the band?
Right. Sure.
And a lot of people will research, but you cannot research the feel
Right.
and the tone and the temperament of the boys.
Sure. Absolutely. Was the band aware you were doing the book, and did you contact them in the process?
No, I had no reason to. It had been a long time, and frankly, I started writing the book about 92, right after I did the Pistol book.
Wow.
And I just would write stories. I did that for, I was doing a lot of other projects. And I would pick out the stories that most excited me.
Right.
It also kept my memory sharp.
Right.
And then finally, I guess 25, 30 years later, I figured, a lot of people have asked me, what happened, and it was time to give an objective point of view.
Sure.
In addition to getting an objective point of view, did you want to set the record straight about certain things, or was there perhaps revenge in the cards for writing the book?
What do you mean?
Well, in other words, there were certain things in the book perhaps you wanted to set straight that some people had some misconceptions about. And did you want to set the record straight because you knew the truth and you didn't think it was out there yet?
A lot of misconceptions, and it was time. The boys are getting on. We're all getting on. And my feeling was after 85, it was no longer Van Halen. It was Van Hagar or Van Sharon or whoever they put in there. But and people don't agree with me, but without David and Edward, there was no Van Halen.
Yeah, well, that's how we feel, Noel. It's interesting. On the podcast, we're fans of the entire band. However, we noticed that we really did make the distinction as well that there's Van Halen and there's Van Hagar, and they are very separate bands. They really, really are. They even sound different. Obviously, Eddie has a certain guitar sound and tone that is the kind of thin line through it. However, it is definitely a completely separate and different type of thing. It really is. We agree with you on that, and I think you put it very well in your book. You said that it didn't have the sound or the swagger of Van Halen. And do you think that's also why, even though the Van Hagar unit was very successful financially and with hits, it doesn't have the legend that the original Van Halen has? Do you think that's why it's not revered?
Well, real simply, take anyone, and I mean almost any rock and roller, including Sharon or Hagar or any of them, and have them jump off a drummerizer and do a split 12 feet off the ground.
Right.
And land perfectly. If you can do that, then you can duplicate Van Halen.
Right.
If you can do what Eddie Van Halen can do, the guy is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
I think there were two sides to my book. One, from day one, I thought they were one of the best bands I had ever seen. And I go back to Pouring Southern Comfort for Janis Joplin at the Fillmore East in '68.
Sure.
I have seen and worked for just about every band except, I think, Elvis and the Beatles. But you cannot replace a David Roth, and you can't replace an Edward Van Halen. And you take one of them away, you don't have it.
Yeah.
And I always felt if they had been able to keep it together, which I think my book explained why they couldn't, they would have had another 5 or 10 years of being a monster band. We were just coming into our own in '84.
You said, without Dave or without Eddie, it wouldn't have worked.
You can replace a bass player and a drummer. And I'm not disrespecting them, but they didn't write music and they didn't write lyrics. And if you look at the show, you take away David's dynamics, his jumping and his raps, and you take away Eddie and his absolute brilliant guitar playing. Okay, you could get a good drummer. You can get a good bass player, but you can't replace the other two.
Yeah.
And that's no knock on Alex or Michael per se.
Right.
But they were not seminal to the band.
Right.
And did you? Let me ask you something though. There's always. These guys are in their early 60s now, and they're still going back and forth about having issues with each other. What is it that's between them that is such a problem? For example, Dave and I work with people every day that we don't necessarily are in love with, but we make it happen. Why is it that, these guys go back to high school. They have to have some sort of bond. Why is it that they're so at odds?
Okay, Dave. Didn't my book pretty well delineate the reason why?
Because it's just so different? Or Dave wanted to take over, and Ed wanted his own band in control, or... it could go either way. Dave obviously is a very dominant human being. But I think, don't you think, though, Noel, that if it wasn't for Dave, Eddie would kind of gone the way of Alan Holdsworth, that he wouldn't have the stage that he's on without Dave's prominence?
Up to a point. There wouldn't be an incredible guy who can do raps and who can jump. And Dave had a marginal voice, but it was perfect for Van Halen. After being together with me 7 years in the big leagues, and they were together 5 or 6 years trying to make it, issues come up. I think if you go back to the book, you'll see that I don't understand, and maybe you can explain this to me, because you guys are the pinoptimal fans. And
Right.
the fans are what made the
Thank you, sir.
band.
Hey, yeah, absolutely.
Without you guys, there would be no Van Halen from day one. You can sell records, you can sell shows, but if you don't have a loyal fan base, which we absolutely had,
Absolutely.
then you're not going to have a band. Now, when you get down to it, you have this incredible fan base who really got thrown for a loop.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't know what happened.
Absolutely.
And it was like, holy shit.
Right.
They were doing 84 outside of the first album, which to me was the best first album ever done.
Oh, hands down. Hands down.
I mean, I had never come across an album that was that strong from beginning to end.
Right.
And then you had 4 albums in between, and I explained that in the book.
Right.
And then you had 84, which was again equal, if not equal to 80 to 78.
Right.
You're at your height.
Right.
We were selling out every show.
It's true.
And adding shows, because I had a philosophy. We would not put a second show on sale until our first show was sold out.
Smart move.
And you can't do it.
Right.
You don't want to do 3 shows and sell out 2.5.
Right.
We used to call them, we don't want to play the orange seats.
Right. Right.
That's all the people that aren't sitting there, the seats are orange,
Of course.
And they would kill me if I, by 82, 81, 79 even, if we didn't sell out.
Right.
So when I took over in the end of 78, I made sure that we did smaller venues.
Right.
For one, you have to touch and feel your audience.
Sure.
And since we had such a brilliant fan base, people that would go, men and women, to the show and just cavil, if you know what that means.
Sure, of course.
Over this band, like I said, you fans made the band. And then it wasn't so much the breakup and another person coming in. You're through the fans for a total loop. All of a sudden there's fighting and this and that. Who's better? Who cares? They're no longer Van Halen.
That's true. That's true. Now, let me ask you something, Noel. When Dave did Crazy from the Heat in 1985, which you talk about in your book that you weren't a big fan of, it was such a hard left from the 1984 album. Do you think Dave wanted to maintain a solo career while still remaining in Van Halen?
It's a really seminal question, Dave. It's easy to remember your names. But you got to understand that when he did that, I don't know whether it was a calculated, I'm going to break the band up, I'm going to go my own route. But what it did was, I was planning in 85, once 84 came out, to go into stadiums.
Sure.
And they could have done it.
Oh, absolutely.
And we could have done another 5 or 10 years.
Sure, absolutely.
But they had to go back and, and they're fighting who's the real Van Halen. There is no Van Halen without Eddie and Dave.
Right.
And what I never understood, and maybe you guys can explain it to me, is why would Edward, who is one of the most brilliant guitar players go after Michael Anthony?
Oh, well,
I mean,
no, I was going to
what does
ask
he
you
have to
that
gain?
very question because, I mean, I read the chapter about, I don't want to give it all away so people read the book themselves, but obviously he was not treated very fairly in 1984, and Eddie's talking junk about him to Neil Schon, and then also, I don't think you talked about this in your book, but Billy Sheehan, the bass player, has said he had been approached to replace Michael Anthony in the band more than once. So why do you think Mike, who is described by everybody as the nicest guy in the universe, gets such a raw deal from Ed and the band?
Another question, Dave, I don't have the answer for. I don't know why Michael, straight out, took the shit he took. In my book, I tell you what they did to him and what I would have advised him to do. And I was pretty plain about that.
He was very simple, very obvious, yeah.
When they made him a sideman in 84 and did really a dastardly thing. It sounds a little Sherlock Holmes, but it was just an evil thing. And he put up with it, and I just don't understand why. And he always did. He never defended himself. Ed, Al, and Dave always came to me with their problems.
Sure.
Okay? You know, pretty much equally, except Dave and Edward Moore. You know, I think Edward called me a puppet. I was no one's fucking puppet.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know, and I don't even think he understands what he's saying. He's just being mean. And I don't think if you read the book you can see anything where I was mean to them.
Well, I think you were very honest and you went out of your way to try to really keep an even keel in a very stormy waters. Let's look at the track record, Noel. Eddie has broken up with David. Eddie has broken up with Mike. Eddie has broken up with Valerie. I mean, Eddie has broken up with Gary. I mean, Eddie has broken up with Sammy. I mean, after a while, you know,
I'm seeing a theme.
So there's a running theme here. So do you think it's the bond between Eddie and Alex that affects everything?
To a great extent, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because in the end, you'll see in my book where Edward says, I can't put up with Al. Whatever Al wants, I'll do.
Yeah.
And that tells me that if it was anyone else, if it was Alex Smithenheimer.
Right.
And he wasn't his brother, Edward would have told him to go fuck yourself.
Right, exactly.
I said in the beginning of the book, I knew you couldn't get rid of, well, we didn't want to get rid of Greg and Rudy. They were brilliant, but they were their friends from high school. You weren't getting rid of them. They were brilliant road technicians, and you were never getting rid of Al.
Sure, absolutely. And the older brother,
Blood is thicker than water.
Right.
So even though when you talk about Alex and Mike, you had mentioned neither of them contribute to the songwriting or anything like that. But here they are cutting Mike out of certain stuff when they should have cut Alex out of the same stuff because it was the same reason. But they didn't.
Exactly.
Right? And why? Because he's the brother.
That's true.
Exactly, Dave.
True.
For the same reason. But the reason he didn't was Al had straight out dementia breakups. And I say it. He was seeing pink elephants. Or, as I talk in the book, he was telling Jan and I that he was seeing big penises coming out of the wall.
I did laugh out loud.
That's what he told us. It wasn't just telling me, it was telling me and my wife.
And I think that was the minibar talking, I think. It was a little bit...
That was the minibar.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately,
Hey,
I tell you, I give you all the credit in the world, Noel. You know, your wife went through a lot as well, in addition to yourself. So it was hard to read that that she was put in that position with Al, and you know, people can read that in the book, but it's unfortunate. But let me ask you something. One people talk about all the time, David Lee Roth is such a colorful, interesting character. You know, he's obviously incredibly smart, incredibly funny. He's always got a quote. He's very charismatic. But people always want to know, what's the real Dave? What is the real Dave like behind the persona? How would you describe the real Dave?
I try to in the book, but it's simply like if I came into the office, Dave, and you didn't know whether Dave or Dave would appear.
Right.
The one Dave being totally brilliant and incisive and creative, or a complete jerk. And that was always scary, because when you're dealing with the public, you have to basically shut him up, because all of a sudden one day it's a schizophrenic type of situation. One day he can be the nicest, smartest guy in the world, and the next day he can be a horror.
Right. So he's up and down.
A lot of my book is about David's schizophrenia.
Right. That's very true.
Not like
true.
We're not all like that,
right.
But he was unpredictable.
That's true. Now, do you think that when Ed married Valerie and in the early 80s, and they got so much media attention from all the different magazines and TV shows, do you think that really burned David up, that Eddie got that kind of spotlight?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about, in the beginning, we're talking about 79, 80, and David would literally say, and I talk about it in the book, I'm going to marry a superstar.
Right.
I'm going to marry a Hollywood. And Edward did.
Right, he did.
And you don't think that burned David's ass?
I would imagine so. Well, let me ask you something. And also in the book, Valerie came off as very naive. Was she that blind as to what was going on the road?
I think so.
Wow.
I don't believe that she could have. I mean, when I talk about her playing cards with my wife and Denise, the bus driver, and what she said.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was just as naive as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
But she also was, she and her co-star,
Mackenzie?
Yeah. I mean, they were doing drugs probably from the age of 11. I don't know.
Wow, yeah.
But they certainly weren't drug virgins that I could tell.
Right.
Because she didn't start doing drugs at that level.
Sure.
When all of a sudden she meets Ed and starts doing coke.
Yeah. It's amazing. I tell you, one thing that the book really illuminates is it's unbelievable how these guys could function with the amount of coke, weed, and alcohol that's being consumed. It's unreal. It's amazing that they didn't have any physical ailments. Do you think that they got away with that because of their youth?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You hit it on the head.
Yeah.
When you're 21 years old, you can get away with drinking all night.
Yeah.
And when you're 38 years old, you can't do it.
It's true. It's true.
A lot of the attention over the years has been focused on Eddie and his alcohol demons. But from reading the book, it sounded like, by 1984, Alex was really the one who had major issues. Did you wake up in the morning and wonder if Alex was, going to make it through the day?
all right, Alex was one of the strongest people, both physically and mentally. He might have been one of the nastiest people, but he was, he knew what he wanted in a warped sort of way. By 84, he wasn't the guy he was in 78.
Yeah.
He was wealthy. He'd been married once and then got married again, and he'll probably get married again. And David only wishes he could find one woman to stay with him for a week.
That long, huh?
He's a special guy.
Yeah, I don't remember him being with a woman except this one beautiful woman, Kelly, who he went down the Amazon with.
Okay.
And of course, it was 2 weeks, which is his maximum time with one person. That was it. Came back after 2 weeks, and you never saw him again.
That's
together.
amazing. That's amazing.
Do you think that was him? He was restless, or do you think that was after being with him for a week or two? The lady was like, "Oh, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm out of here."
Yeah, you got that right.
So it was both. All of the
I
above.
didn't say it. You said it, Dave.
He put you right in the corner there.
You could have written that part of the book.
So now let me ask you, Noel, in the book you talk about the situation in 1981 with Fair Warning being a lackluster album, yet in retrospect, it's revered as one of their best. However, in the book you called it kind of a weird record, and there wasn't a lot of marketability to it. However, there's 3 songs on there that I would say are pretty radio-friendly, being Unchained, Hear About It Later, So This Is Love, to work with. And so what happened there?
It got popular after the fact.
Okay.
If you look at sales, again, we talk about, would you believe that there was still payola going on?
That's incredible.
Couldn't believe it, and then it was like, I don't know why I'm so surprised.
Yeah.
I wasn't, although on the other hand, I was.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't been with bands that either needed it or, my goal and the band's goal was to be a platinum band.
Sure.
We could not afford to sell 800,000 records. We put in close to $250,000 to be a platinum band.
Yeah.
Carl Scott said, "No, I don't want to touch it, but go to promotion.
Yeah.
And you can buy it."
Oh, yeah.
I'm going, wait a minute, this is not Murray the K. This is not, New York City in 1965. But in fact, it was.
Sure. Absolutely.
Right. For Fair Warning, Eddie fought really hard to get what he wanted on that album. And as you pointed out, the sales initially for that album weren't too good. After that happened, was Dave walking around saying, "I told you so, I told you it wouldn't be that good," and then he had ammunition for Diver Down?
I never heard that. A lot of supposition. Like someone wrote this ridiculous story about the band breaking up because of a photo session. It never happened.
So
that was a nice story, but it's total bullshit.
So that whole thing with women and children first, that was all BS?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Well, are you talking
the photo session?
Yeah.
Were you referring to the photo session when they did the cover to the Women and Children First album with what's his name, Dave Hellman?
Helmet, yeah.
Helmet Newton and Norman Seeff.
Yeah.
That was a regular photo shoot, and there's always arguments at photo shoots. But that story has someone being in my office and knowing that I was making phone calls. Never happened.
Wow.
Really?
Out of other things, I was never a New York City policeman. Let me correct that. I was never a New York City policeman, and someone wrote that I was.
Wow.
I mean, all these things are from people who never hung out with the band.
Yeah.
I lived with them. I was their manager for 7 years.
Right.
I rode the bus with them, and I was at 92% of the shows.
Wow.
I was at hundreds of shows. These writers have never been to a show from 78 to 85.
Sure.
Yet they're telling stories that never happened.
No, why do you think that? I mean, I think part of that is because the band is like so quiet and secretive. They never say anything.
Very true.
And so that's where the supposition you talked about comes from, because people feel the need to fill in that void. So why do you think the band is so secretive all the time?
And continues to be.
You have to be. Any band I've ever worked with doesn't want necessarily, when I talk about the movies that the first manager made, that almost did kill us. The secretaries hated it. They didn't want to see the band doing what they were doing.
Right.
When you read the book, you will see that that's the worst thing you could possibly do. So,
you had those movies?
When I took over management, the first thing I did was correct that. I got to get these secretaries to love my band. They loved me because I spent years working for Warner Brothers, but they were not happy watching David on his famous films. And it wasn't just David. And that was a management error that wasn't mine. I never would have done that. It's like I couldn't even believe it when I found out what he did. But I knew that when I took over, I had to win back, not the fan base, because they never knew it was out, but the people that worked for Warner Brothers. The women were not rock and rollers. And they didn't want to hear about that. It demeaned them. And I got to tell you one thing, guys.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about women on the road and groupies,
mm-hmm.
when people demean them, they are wrong. A band does not live on adulation alone. Without women, when I talk what happened in England, when there were no women available, you have to have women, and these women were wonderful. They filled a void, and call them groupies, call them whatever you want. I call them essential. You don't get along without women on the road.
Sure.
Or in some bands, men on the road. I'm not homophobic.
Right.
It's what goes on. But the point being, don't put the women down. It's wrong.
Sure. Let me ask you something. In the book, you state this quote about Roth. If his arrogance and ego sometimes brought out the worst in his bandmates, well, it also brought out the best in them. How would you explain that theory?
Look at it this way. Dave, I want you to get up on stage and go in front of 15,000 people and not have an incredibly strong ego. I didn't want to be out there.
Yeah.
You have to have a tremendous amount of courage.
Sure.
You've got to have a show.
Yep.
David he could have been in the Olympics. He worked an hour or two before the show stretching.
Right.
And if he didn't, you watch these football players who pull hamstrings. It's because they didn't do what David Roth did.
It's true.
And that was loosen up to the point that he could do machinations that nobody could do.
It's true.
And they also wouldn't put the time in to do.
Yep.
I mean, can you tell me the band member in any band that did a split off the drum riser?
Not at all. And not only that, but the guy is 62 years old today, and he can still walk on stage with his shirt off and look cool. That's not easy.
Unfortunately, if David ever jumped off a drum riser today, they would take him away in a hospital.
No. We know that.
He doesn't do it anymore.
No, he doesn't. He can't do that because he's got back issues. But I'm just saying that he still, at 62, keeps himself in very tight shape.
Yeah, he always did.
Always did. Very disciplined guy. Let me ask you something. Out of curiosity, Noel, have you kept up with the band since they reunited with Roth? And they have Wolfie, which is Eddie Van Halen's son, replacing Michael in the band. And also, did you hear A Different Kind of Truth, which came out in 2012?
It's real simple. When they left my house that day in '85, I never spoke to them again.
Right.
I had no reason to.
You haven't listened to the new reunion album?
You never heard the album or out of curiosity?
I heard all their albums afterwards once.
Right.
But none of them came close to being Van Halen 1 or 84. Don't mess with the perfect thing. Right. And by 84, they had the perfect thing.
Yep.
Then mess it up, and you screwed it up.
Yeah.
I don't care how good you are, you're not going to replace your seminal albums 1 and 6.
True. A lot of fans want to know, because we're all so curious. How much is in the vaults? Was there live albums that weren't released? Were there unreleased songs? There's a lot of fans that are culminating, looking for that material. Is there much left over?
Not that I know of.
Really?
Although I was admittedly, I didn't like to be in the studio. I didn't want to see what was going on. And as far as I know, they wouldn't have done that many covers, I believe, if they had a surfeit of material.
Okay.
Also, why wouldn't they have the material now?
Yeah, well...
Did they ever record video or audio for a live album or something like that?
Not that I knew of.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it was never planned to be a live album. It's very difficult to do a live album, mainly because you've got to stay on mic perfectly. You cannot make an error. You don't do it 3 or 4 times, although they didn't normally have to. You have to have a perfect album. And to do that, you have to have a different kind of band because, the boys would get up there and they would improvise. You can't improvise on a live album.
It's true.
You've got to do it every time the same way. And what was wonderful about the band was the boys improvised. And David was actually when he jumped up on Al's drum riser and started, when Al was doing his solo, and started beating on the hi-hat. And then Eddie got up there. I mean, that was all improvisation.
Sure.
They rarely did a show that was the duplicate of another show. They were a brilliant band.
Sure.
I'm with you guys. I don't know a better band. The Stones.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
But, you put Keith and Mick together, and they were smart enough never to break that up.
Yep.
And they were totally innovative for their whole career. And they'd come out after 10 years with a seminal record.
Yep.
That's pretty bloody good.
That's true. And, same thing with Mick and Keith, okay? Is the
Absolutely. Take one of them away
Right.
and you don't have it.
That's right, but it's the tug and pull between David and Eddie, between Joe Perry and Steven Tyler, between Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, between Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. It's that clash of the two incredible alpha males that kind of mix together that makes the unique sound. That's what makes it so unique, and I think Van Halen is really in that cachet. However, I don't understand why Van Halen doesn't have the same legend that Zeppelin, The Who, or the Stones have. Why do you think they don't have the same legacy?
Legacy?
Yeah, in terms of the world.
Because you do 6 records, and you're ready to do your 7th. And your 7th is going into your legacy. You cut your head off by splitting up. Your legacy is dead. You bring in another singer. You bring in another bass player. You bring in another. It's not Van Halen. You've got to exist. Like the Stones have an incredible legacy because they never let their fans down. And I worked for the Stones. I did the 71 Stones tour in England when I was living there.
Nice.
And whether they got along on backstage or not didn't mean a whit.
Right.
The fact is that they always synced on stage. And what happened backstage did not spill onto the stage. I will say one thing.
Yeah.
That when you brought up the fact that how could they have done all these drugs and done their stage show, sure amazed me. They were brilliant.
Yeah.
They, except for the US Festival, which I described, unfortunately, they could do a show and not even see. You know, they were that good. You know, they never let the fans down. They didn't screw up a show because they were stoned on alcohol or coke or weed. They didn't.
Yeah.
Every show was a brilliant fucking show.
That's amazing.
And that's why I say when these people who never saw them in 78 to 85 should shut the fuck up.
So Noel, I always said, I want to congratulate the guy who got Van Halen to be the highest paid act at that show at $1.5 million
Unbelievable.
plus. And then after reading the book, it obviously was you. And I just wanted to know, did the band really have an appreciation for how much money you were putting on the table for them, for us, and for everything else?
That was insane.
They just really had no concept of how good you were doing.
You got to look at it this way. If the band was not appreciative of how much I was making them, then how could the audience?
Yeah.
Okay? Because they never said, wow, this is the first interview, guys, that I've ever done.
Wow.
Outside of one interview in Japan, which I can't even read. It's in Japanese. And in 79, I did a short interview for Cashbox. I don't do interviews. I don't tap myself on the back. I'm behind the scenes.
Sure.
But in the book, you will see they were making, I remember reading something that Hagar said, well, I can make you so much more money. Bullshit. Show me how you can take your merchandising and go from making 50 cents on the dollar to making back to a quarter on the dollar.
Right.
They threw it away.
Yeah.
And the next year we would have been in stadiums.
Absolutely.
They were not in stadiums in 85 or 86, were they?
No, not yet. They were right on the precipice. And I tell you...
They could have been, but they blew it. Let's just put it that way.
And Eddie blew it too when he did the Thriller album, when he did Beat It for Free, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. That to me was. I mean, I explained how I was flabbergasted.
Oh,
But you got to understand, by that time, they were not thinking rationally.
that's
If
true.
that had been 80, he would have been thinking rationally. By that time, it was, oh, what's another $1 million? Give me a fucking break. It's a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now,
It's $1 million
about
is what it is.
$1 million is like getting $7 or $8 million today.
I would
Think about it.
I would imagine, Noel, that must have killed you. Let's be honest. Edward Van Halen's solo on Beat It brought a whole new audience to Michael Jackson's album Thriller than he ever had. He brought a whole rock audience to purchasing that record because of Eddie Van Halen's solo. My God, that must have been worth points on the album if it ever was. And for Christ's sake, Quincy Jones never even paid him for the session, which is unreal. I mean, granted, it's kind on Edward's part, but at the same time, my Lord, what money was left on the table.
I begged him. In the book, I tell you.
Yep.
I begged him.
Yep.
Just take half a point.
Yep.
No, I love Michael. Fuck me, love Michael, but take some money.
Unreal.
Right.
Unreal. Unreal. I agree with you.
And I'll tell you one other thing that's interesting. David was very much into the press. And the two things that David never pushed our press agent, Steve Mandel, who was a brilliant press agent, he could get anything in the press. He could get you to believe that Dave had paternity insurance. And they believe it for 30 years.
That's true.
You know,
Phil,
I heard
I
one
thought
guy
that
was
was a
doing
true
a
story.
seminar saying that they had paternity insurance. And you know how you could easily verify that?
Yeah,
Call up Lloyd's of London.
it's true.
They laughed at me. How come no one called up their agent and said, well, can I get in paternity insurance? They said, what, are you out of your fucking mind? How simple was it to make a phone call?
One part of the book that really cracked me up was when David came to your door to tell you that, can you do me a favor and tell my girlfriend that I have the clap? I mean, that was unbelievable. It's like, how you couldn't earn enough money from these guys for doing what you did. It's unbelievable. My God, you got to go that far as to letting his girlfriend know that he's got the clap? Holy.
David, wait. Give me 7 figures. I'll do it again. Come on. 7 figures
That's
is
right.
7 figures.
That's right. Oh, my God, this poor guy.
Don't tell me you're going to turn down 7 figures because you don't want to call a girl up and tell her she got the clap.
Oh, not only that, but you broke...
I'd like to tell a girl every week that.
Not only that,
figures.
but the Sparkomatic story is heartbreaking. Oh, my God.
You don't.
So what do you think really happened there, Noel? Why do you think Dave turned it down and didn't tell the rest of the band?
I don't know whether he told them or not. I say that in the book.
I think it's
But I
obvious.
will
but
say
you
it
strongly
broke
imply
my
that Alex
fucking
did
heart
not know.
because I
Yeah.
worked really hard on that deal.
Oh, yeah, my God.
And the other thing with that is, when I talked about before what Dave is going to walk into the office that day, that's a prime example.
Good point. He's right. That's right. Yeah.
He walks in the office and says, no, fuck you and your $1 million or $2 million. Even though he told me everything they wanted to do, and they never imagined I'd get 7 figures plus.
It's
And
true.
then to turn around in 30 seconds and tell me, we don't want it, we want Marlboro, we want Levi's.
Right. Unreal.
All of a sudden,
Unreal.
that is my example of I didn't know which David would show up.
It's good. And unfortunately, that particular day, when he called him about the Sparkomatic deal, it was the wrong David. However, my heart, I tell you, when I read that, my heart broke for you because that and the whole story about Al hitting on your wife, it was just so hard. I mean, to go through. I mean, you have to realize the hoops that Noel went through to be the manager in that particular moment is very, very difficult. There's another moment I wanted to ask you about, Noel, is that the Van Halen logo was a comparison to the Jimi Hendrix poster. Was it the other way around, or which way was it that, who do you think took from who? What do you think happened there?
It's real simple.
Yeah.
I got that poster at the end of 78.
Okay.
Okay? And I got it from the ex-manager's office. There's no way it didn't come first.
The Jimi Hendrix version?
Yeah,
right.
The Hendrix poster came first.
Right.
Can't guarantee it. I may be wrong, but I don't see how that wasn't a ripoff. And, maybe they'll want to sue me for saying that, but I'm saying I don't know, guys, but I suspect that that's what happened.
The only reason I asked, Noel, is because some other people have had that poster, and they said it came out around 79 or 80.
Yep.
And
that's
that time,
not true. I got it in
Water...
78. Come on.
Okay.
I know when I got it. I kept every file from the Fillmore through Profit. I have every file. I have every contract I ever did. I'm a pack rat. I have, my wife wants to kill me. But doing this book, having thousands of pages of document, it makes me sure of what happened.
Absolutely.
I have the document of Michael signing away his rights. That one really upset me. I think in the whole book, that one, if they could do that to him, they could cut off my left arm.
That's true.
No, do you think he signed that document because he knew that if he just said, all right, that's it, you guys are treating me like garbage, I'm leaving the band, that he had nowhere to go after that?
What do you mean?
I mean, you had said in the book that, Al and Mike were decent players, but if they ever had to become session guys, they probably would have struggled. Do you think Michael Anthony knew that, and that's why he took the pay cut? Because he figured staying in Van Halen was still the best deal for him instead of leaving?
We're talking about, do you know how much money we're talking about? He gave away all the rights to 84.
Oh, brutal.
I mean, I say that in the book.
Yep.
I mean, if it was just the mechanicals or whatever, we're talking about over 30 years.
Wow.
Think about how many records. That was the biggest selling record. That was Diamond, 10 million.
Oh, yeah, more than that. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Sure.
Would you give up that? What I told in the book was I had a way for Michael to get out of it.
Yep.
And I explained how we could have gotten out of it. But he never came and asked me.
It's true. Too nice a guy.
If he had come to me, I would have told him, don't fucking do it. Tell him to fuck off.
Absolutely.
Because what are they going to do? They got a show that night. They're going to blow that show off. And I don't understand Michael. I don't understand why he would do that. Even in the contract, it said, show it to a lawyer.
I get the impression, just from being a fan of Michael, and my God, we're big fans of Mike. I think he contributes a lot.
He's brilliant. His voice,
unbelievable,
added a huge dimension.
Yep, absolutely. Part of the signature Van Halen sound.
I don't think Al's voice was as good.
No, but it's part of the signature. Very true. Part of the signature Van Halen sound, I tell you, and Michael is missed, and we love Mike. However, I think, to be honest with you, Mike really goes out of his way. I think he's a pretty level-headed guy to realize he's not dealing with regular, level-headed human beings. And Mike really tries to keep the tribe together. And he really goes out of his way and sacrifices himself in many instances.
Come on. You don't sacrifice yourself. This is rock and roll.
I know.
Fuck everybody. Don't give away millions of dollars.
I agree,
Noel. Tells you to.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Unfortunately,
Michael's
a good-headed guy.
Michael. I always thought he was the nicest guy to get along with.
Unreal. Yeah, that's true.
But you do not do that, Dave and Dave. You just don't.
True.
I don't care, because if he had done what I wanted him to do, he wouldn't have had to give away anything, and they would have backed off. That's it. Well, you cannot tell me why he did that. I don't know. I was in the room watching them just about giggling over the money they were going to make off of doing that to him.
Do you think that Roth, coming from a wealthy background, irked the brothers because they came from such poverty?
No, and they didn't come from poverty. They came from lower middle class.
Right.
I don't think so at all.
No.
There never seemed to be I'm a rich kid, you're a poor kid. It never entered it. They were all, in the beginning, very equal. I never heard them say anything about, well, Dave, you came from money, or Dave saying, well, I came from money, you didn't. It never happened.
How did Van Halen keep so much creative control over their music? What part of their contract that they had the final say over everything released by Warner Brothers? How did they pull that off?
Well, you come out with that album, VH1, and you tell anyone whatever the fuck you want to do. You come out with, Chunky, Novi, and Ernie, and you don't tell anyone what to do. But when you're selling that many albums that quickly, and you're going platinum in a year, you can tell anyone to do whatever the heck you want them to do. We wore the pants with Warner Brothers. They got screwed on their first contract, but I got them out of that.
Right.
Do you know
Very
how
shrewd,
much
by the
that
way.
one deal I made for them made them? They went from making 75 cents on an album to close to a $1.40.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
And you know how much they said thank you?
Oh, please. No,
I don't think they did.
No, they didn't realize. They really don't realize. They were so young. They really didn't realize the work and the cleanup that you did on their behalf.
Yeah, they did, but they didn't. They didn't want to give anyone credit. Certainly not me.
Good point.
I don't know
why is that?
But, I got no hard-on for them. They were a good band.
Yeah.
I made a lot of money. I became a really good manager. I didn't start out to be a fucking brilliant manager.
Right.
But I got good at it because I had spent all my life working with bands and working with record companies.
Right.
But I never walked in as a polished manager. It took me a year or two to get a handle on it.
That's true. Noel, you talked about when Roth went solo. Did you have any inkling to maybe call him up and try to manage Dave on his own, or had you had enough at that point?
Do I sound stupid to you? I mean, I never hit myself on the head with a bat when I don't have to.
That's true. That's very true.
After a certain amount of time, Dave could have offered me the world, but he didn't, and, his career could have really happened.
Right.
And there are stories which I didn't tell where because of what he did, he wrecked his solo career.
Yeah.
But that'll be in another book.
Nice.
Are you writing a sequel?
Yeah, you're going to write a sequel?
No. But there are other stories that I never told. I may write one or two. I don't know. Stories for magazines. I kind of want to make a Sex Pistol movie. I don't know. But the Van Halen book was written around the concept of a movie.
Yeah,
did you feel it ran like a movie?
Oh yeah, I mean, and let me tell you, there's a lot.
You play out in your mind.
There's a lot more meat on that bone than the Sex Pistols, I think, without question. And I think there's a lot more that America in general has to feast on with Van Halen than the Sex Pistols. Although the Sex Pistols are wonderful and they're incredible in their own right, I think Van Halen carries a little more weight in terms of drama and interest in rock and roll. They're just an anomaly in many ways.
Well, remember, one was 12 days on the road, but one was 7 years.
Oh yeah. And the most important 7 years. The most important 7 years.
Yes, and I left out stories because we didn't want to write War and Peace.
How much did you...
Hey, Noel, do you have a story you can share with us now that you left out of the book?
The next time we call, I'll think one up for you.
All right, you got it.
I won't think one up. I'll tell you one.
Let me ask you something.
I'd love to call you, speak to you again. You guys are really nice.
Yeah.
You have a great show.
Thank you.
You got a great following, and I've dealt with a lot of radio people, and they're all usually arrogant. And you guys are not.
No.
You're obviously straight out, honest fans who have legitimate questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You know what? My life is complete. Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry?
He said his life is complete.
I said my life is complete because I just got the ultimate compliment from Ben Halen's manager.
That's the truth.
Well, I have no reason to bullshit you.
I appreciate it.
I'm just telling you, I will now do my second radio interview feeling a lot better about it. I was expecting to run into a couple assholes.
I'm glad you weren't like the other day, you knew.
And you guys are solid Van Halen fans who have very legitimate questions.
We appreciate that, Noel. Thank you so much. One thing that was unbelievable to me was the overwhelming amount of coke and weed and alcohol that went on. Did you ever get concerned for these gentlemen's health? Did you ever worry about that you'd have to put them away in terms of a rehab center?
Hey, I'm not a quiet boy.
Right.
You know, I'm not saying, I don't do that.
Right.
You know, I got to be a jerk to say I didn't do any coke or I didn't smoke any weed or I didn't do this. I didn't do a lot of it because I couldn't work and do what they did. I couldn't. No way.
That's true.
But, you know, it's not like, you know, Saint Monk. It ain't happening.
Well, let me ask you, you guys came at such an integral part of MTV, which was the beginning of MTV. Van Halen embraced it, and the video motive, it worked out well. Tell me how much and how important MTV was to the astronomical stardom of Van Halen.
We made MTV, and MTV helped make us.
True.
And I gotta say straight out that David Roth and Peter Angelis were the real creative guys behind that.
Sure.
No question about it.
Yep.
Without Pete and Dave, we wouldn't have had that creativity and those wonderful videos.
That's true.
They were I didn't do it. I just was the executive producer. I got the money. But they were the creative guys.
Right.
And they deserve all the credit in the world for those videos. And people shouldn't forget that.
It's true. The second single off of 1984 was I'll Wait, which was the other song that had the keyboards on it. Did you guys think about doing a video for that? Was there any attempt to do a video for I'll Wait?
To be honest with you, I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I doubt it.
Okay.
I don't, I have a good memory, but, I don't remember everything, and I don't remember that at all. It's just not in my wheelhouse.
Sure.
Hey, Noel, I wanted to switch gears for a second. You took a whole chapter to talk about the merchant bootleggers who are out there and how you tried to combat them.
That was war.
I thought at one point that David Lee Roth had said that he was selling merchant bootleg shirts when he was in Van Halen in addition to the legit stuff. Was that just another made-up story? Or
Wait a minute.
Truth to that?
He what?
He had said that he was selling bootleg T-shirts in addition to the legitimate T-shirts inside the show. Was there any truth to that?
When did this fiction happen?
I forget when I read it. I want to, Dave. Help
when
me.
I was managing,
they
were selling bootleg shit.
I don't know. I'd have to look that up.
I can tell you that never happened,
Okay.
David.
Okay.
Sober up.
That's cool. Sober up, Dave.
No. It's one of the stories out there, so I figured I'd ask the guy who would know.
That's okay.
It's another one of those. I can tell them anything; they'll believe it. I can tell them Noel's a New York City cop; they'll believe it.
No.
Fair enough. Thanks for setting the record straight.
No, let me ask you something. Ted Templeman, the producer of all the Van Halen albums, while you were in the managerial position, what was your relationship with Ted, and what kind of exchange did you have with him?
It was cordial. I think he did a good job.
Oh, he did an amazing job.
I had no problems with Ted.
Okay.
How about
pretty
Don
simple.
Landy?
Like I said, I didn't hang out in the studio and I wasn't a fucking groupie. I was in the office doing my fucking job, booking tours. You see, I was lucky because since I was a merchandiser and since I was a manager, I could go into a facility and say, I want 80-20, not 75-25.
Right.
And they had to give it to me because I'd say, okay, I'm going to walk across town and play the other facility.
Nice.
Now, merchandisers can't normally do that.
True.
They don't manage the band. They can't say, I want this but I was in that position where I can say, if you don't want me, don't give me my 80-20.
That's true.
Even at the Us Festival, we were the only band that was able to sell our shirts at all the shows. That was a special thing that I had. So everyone else was allowed to sell their shirts at their show. And we sold them at every show.
Absolutely. And, in 1984, that's really when merchandising for a band started to really kick in. And people started to appreciate the merchandising and wearing it and really purchasing it and showing their representation for the band. That really seemed to be a timing issue. Do you think that was a key moment for you guys? I mean, you guys came right into the 80s where the money started kicking in.
You got to understand, when I took over management, I knew that merchandising was pure money.
Right.
A lot of managers didn't want to waste their time, didn't want to negotiate with the facilities. Like I said, I had my own T-shirt factory, or the band had it. I gave it to them. They took it away from me. Having your own merchandising company gives you tremendous amount of leverage. That's why we were making 50% on the dollar and not 25%. My old friend Bill Graham, did it for a while, but was taking 75%. I said, guys, this won't work.
Right.
I want 50%. They said,
Right.
you can't do that. I said, well, when I was a kid, I used to work for my dad pushing racks in the garment district. You've seen those guys.
Sure.
Yeah,
I used to push my father was a manufacturer's rep for children's clothes. And I was one of those kids that pushed the racks. And I understood. My father would take me down south and I'd see how fabrics were cut and all that. It was part of my upbringing. You know, a lot of people didn't. I mean, I was raised in the garment business.
Sure. Absolutely.
Anyhow.
And what are you most proud of over your time with Van Halen? You were obviously there during the most lucrative time from 1978 to 1985. What are you most proud of?
I guess that we could last as long as we did.
It's true.
You know, I mean, the odds were stacked against us because of, well, I explain that in the book. You know, basically, I was proud of that, and I was proud of the deals I cut.
Sure.
I mean, to me, you got to understand, we didn't make $1,500,000. We made $1,550,000.
Right.
Because when Steve Wozniak came to me, I went to Frank at Premiere and said, Frank, I want a most favored nation deal. He said, what's that? I said, well, real simply, it means if they hire another act and pay them more than $1.5 million, we get what they get.
Sure.
And as it turned out, when they hired Bowie, Steve called me up and said, no, and I knew this from Frank, we've got Bowie. I said, that's wonderful. And he said, yeah, but we're going to give him $50,000 to bring, you know, all their clothes and equipment from Europe. I said, I think that's really fair. But to be honest with you, we deserve that too.
Yeah, that's the truth. Van Halen was on the press. Did you realize that the band was literally on the edge of about to explode to be the biggest band in the world?
Of course.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm not stupid. You know, you gotta be an idiot not to be counting the money, seeing the ticket sales, and watching this record explode.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, that was a no-brainer.
That's the truth.
Except for the four guys. They couldn't see it.
So tell me, just to wrap up, Noel, what do you want people to walk away with after reading this book?
I want them to understand what they never understood before. I want them to finally hear what really happened. I'm not some yokel that never went to a show and never met the band. I was living with them for 7 years.
Yep.
You know, these people still think David had paternity insurance. I wanted to set the record straight.
Sure.
And that's what I set out to do. And I luckily had the absolute best writer. I wrote the stories, he rewrote them, and Joel Layden,
yep,
one of the finest writers I have ever dealt with.
Excellent job.
You could tell the book flows really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, he did a magnificent job. And I was lucky that my 12 days on the road, the Sex Pistols in America was also put out on HarperCollins.
Sure.
And there's a guy named Matt Harper who was our editor and the guy who was our liaison. And brilliant guy.
Yep.
And Katie Steinberg, the publicist at HarperCollins, and even their lawyer, Victor. I lucked out and got the best team possible.
True.
From my I give my writer all the credit in the world.
Hey, didn't
I am not a brilliant writer.
Ha!
I never claimed to be.
Yeah.
I can tell stories from here to Christmas, and I can write them down, but Joe makes them like butter.
That's absolutely
And
true.
never forget the name Joe Layton.
That's true.
He's written 30 books. And not to give him credit and Harper Collins credit and Matt Harper and Katie, doesn't go over well with me. I didn't do all of it. My wife and my daughter.
Yep.
I mean, my wife remembered things I never remembered. And
Oh,
she
yeah.
was there from 81
Yep.
till 85.
Not only that, but she...
Brilliant woman. And my daughter, who's 26,
Wow.
is a wonderful writer and a brilliant editor.
Awesome.
I mean, Sarah is wonderful, and my wife Jan, that she put up with my shit for
Unbelievable.
30 years says a lot.
Absolutely.
I mean, I wouldn't have put up with me.
She's incredible. She really is, and she comes off incredible in the book. Noel, we want to thank you so much for your time. It's incredible the amount of effort you put into the band. We all love Van Halen. You have really made them a better band with your efforts in terms of their management and all the deals that you made for them, whether they appreciate it or not. We appreciate it. I think you did a fantastic job, not only managing Van Halen, but putting it together in this book called Running with the Devil, with Noel Monk as the author, as well as Joel Layden. And we want all of our listeners to go out and read this book, Running with the Devil by Noel Monk. It is a mandatory Van Halen read.
I have to say, guys, you have made me feel good about doing interviews.
Awesome.
No, really, I'm not blowing smoke up your ear. You guys are a pleasure to talk to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was like getting on the phone with a couple of regular guys who were avid Van Halen fans
That's true.
and talking. I felt
That's
no
us.
pressure, and your questions were extremely good. You guys
Awesome.
know your shit.
Thank
No,
you. Yeah,
thank you
we're
so
halfway
much,
through the
Noel.
bit.
I just wanted, before I go, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
You know,
No,
thank you to all
Appreciate
your
that. Very kind of you,
fans,
sir.
because without them, I ain't got a book.
We are so excited about your book. It is a fantastic read. It is a feast for Van Halen fans. Noel, of all people, is a veteran of the Van Halen army, and he is a man who has put Van Halen on the map throughout 1978 to 1985. This is the man to talk to. Noel, we want to wish you the best of luck with your book. We hope it is a #1 national bestseller.
Well, thank you, Dave and Dave, and I will definitely untrain you. So, have a great evening.